The NGO Human Rights Watch says Belarus and Poland have committed serious human rights violations amid the migrant crisis at the border between the two countries. Belarusian border guards may be guilty of torture, the group said, after conducting interviews with migrants. The interviewees also said that they had been pushed back, sometimes violently, by Polish border guards. Human Rights Watch urged the EU to start showing solidarity with the victims at the border and said the two governments need to allow humanitarian aid to migrants to prevent further deaths. And for more on this story, we can speak to our correspondents. Barbara Wesel is at the European Parliament in Strasbourg, and Nick Connolly is in Minsk in Belarus for us. Good morning to you both. Nick, I want to start with you because Human Rights Watch says that Belarusian border guards might be guilty of torture against migrants. And you were just at the border region. So what do you know about what has been happening there?
Well, Sumi, certainly the migrants we spoke to who are now, most of them just about surviving in a former warehouse just directly on Belarus's border with Poland. Off camera, they were certainly willing to tell us about mistreatment, about beatings, especially once they had come back from Poland, once they'd been rejected by the Polish side. A sense that the Belarusians were doing everything to make it as uncomfortable as possible for them to return to Belarus and to make sure they were motivated to try again to cross that border. Obviously, that was something they weren't going to tell us on camera, as long as they're dependent on the Belarusian authorities here for shelter, for food, but certainly surprise at the treatment here, given that they felt that they had been invited here by those Belarusian authorities, providing those tourist visas, providing that what was meant to be the safe and easy route to the EU through Belarus rather than across the Mediterranean. Also stories of phones, money being taken, of attempts to make money on all parts of the journey when they would then eventually head back to Minsk. Belarusian border guards calling taxis and basically doubling, tripling the prices, people having to pay several $100s just for a taxi journey of a couple of hours per person. So definitely lots of surprise, dissatisfaction and deep resentment towards these authorities here, but very real concerns about talking about them openly, given how dependent they are right now on the Belarusians for their situation here.
Barbara, on the other side of the border, Human Rights Watch says that pushbacks by Polish authorities are violating the right to asylum under EU law, and they're urging the European Union to show solidarity. Are those calls being heard there in Strasbourg?
No, Sumi, I'm afraid those calls aren't heard because the majority of the House here is framing this whole crisis as a political problem, a problem that has been created by Alexander Lukashenko in Minsk, which is basically true. However, what many of them don't like to refer to, that at the same time, this is has created a big humanitarian crisis. And there's just parts among the sort of more center-left parties here who are really talking about this and acknowledging this and saying we need to do something. The majority and also the European Commission refers to international organizations, and we heard that they say, yes, we hope the IOM or other UN organizations can get to these people and help them, which so far, as we know, hasn't been true. No access has been given by the Polish side to anyone, no aid organizations nor media. So this is a closed zone, and we know that every day the Polish border guards in their daily reports openly refer to the pushbacks, and it's about 30 a day. They are more or less bragging about. People have tried to cross the border and we pushed them back. So it's no mystery. It's no, everybody knows there's no secret, and nothing is being done about that.
And Nick, from the perspective there in Minsk, is there any resolution to this crisis in sight?
Well, definitely the Belarusian authorities seem to be taken aback by the Europeans' unwillingness to compromise. I think there was definitely a feeling, an expectation here that pictures of people suffering, especially now as winter draws in, would very soon pressure European public opinion and politicians to come to some kind of deal. Alexander Lukashenko talking about the fact that he claims that Merkel had promised him to take 2,000 of these people. So certainly surprise and maybe growing willingness now to try and send some of these people back. Talk from Belarusian authorities of organising more flights back to Iraq. So while the people who are in the country right now, of which there are approximately 7,000 or 10,000 according to different estimates, I think the Belarusian government is still pleased, as it were, by the result, by the resonance, given that these numbers aren't so big in absolute terms, but they definitely have seen how this this maneuver has really taken Europe by surprise and caused great consternation on Europe's eastern flank. So I think this isn't the end of this. I think this is not the last time they will try this, even if the people in country right now might end up being put on a flight pretty soon and sent back home in the next few weeks.
And Barbara, you know, the leader of the Belarusian opposition, Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, is going to address the European Parliament there today. Just very quickly, are there going to be any new measures from the EU against Alexander Lukashenko's regime?
Answer is again no, not right now, because there will be further sanctions against the traffickers, the travel agents and airlines facilitating that, but most of them have already stopped now, and this is sort of going back to the past. But the real economic sanctions that would actually hurt Lukashenko and stop his exports to Western countries or EU countries have in fact risen instead of declined. Those measures have not been taken, and they are not really on the horizon. So a hard line, they're talking the talk, but they're not really willing in the European Union to sort of really punish and push back against Lukashenko.
DW's Barbara Wesel reporting there in Strasbourg, and Nick Connolly for us in Minsk. Thank you both very much.